silent planet for over 300 years, the galaxy had watched Earth. Thousands of signals were sent to the little blue planet. Greetings, warnings, offers of peace, even threats. But from Earth, there was only silence. No message ever came back, no light signals, no energy spikes, not even a whisper of life. It was like the planet had shut itself off completely. Most in the Galactic Council believed Earth was dead, a failed world, maybe destroyed by war or disease. Others thought the humans had gone extinct, but a few believed something else, something more dangerous. "We must know the truth," said High Commander Yulnak of the Valari Empire. "If Earth is silent, we need to ask why. And if they're hiding, we need to know from what." So the Council agreed. A recon ship would be sent. Nothing too aggressive, just a small crew. The ship's name was Velaran. Its mission: enter Earth's orbit, scan for signs of life, and if safe, land and explore. Captain Zarvan was chosen to lead. He was curious, calm, and clever, perfect for such a sensitive mission. "Earth may be a ghost," said Zarvan before departure, "but ghosts often have stories to tell." The Valoran traveled through hyperspace for 26 days before it reached the edge of the solar system. As it entered Earth's neighborhood, the crew expected to find satellites, space junk, or some form of orbiting technology. But there was nothing. "No satellites?" asked Lyra, the ship's science officer. "That's strange. Humans should have left something behind." The closer they got to Earth, the stranger things became. The moon was untouched. No mining, no colonies. Mars was quiet too. Every scan showed no sign of human expansion. Then Earth came into view. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, green lands, white clouds. It looked alive, not like a dead planet. "This is impossible," whispered Lyra. "There's no pollution, no radio signals, no artificial heat. It's like no one is there." They moved into orbit slowly. The ship's sensors began acting strange. Lights blinked off for a moment. Strange static filled the communication lines. The artificial gravity flickered. "Are we being jammed?" asked the engineer, panicking slightly. "No," said Zarvan calmly. "This feels like a warning." They completed one rotation around the planet. Cameras zoomed in. Cities could be seen. Large, empty cities. Tall buildings untouched. Roads, clean but deserted. Airports, silent. Not one moving thing. "Why would they build so much and then vanish?" Lyra said, confused. The crew decided to land. They selected a large city near a coastline. Based on ancient Earth records, it was once called New York. As the Velaran descended, the ship shook slightly, just for a second. All systems dimmed, then returned. "We're fine," said the pilot. "Just some atmospheric interference, maybe a weather system." But there were no clouds, no storms, nothing moved. The ship landed quietly in the middle of a massive city, square. The buildings around them stood tall like silent statues, glass windows unbroken, lights off, streets perfectly clean. "Where is everyone?" whispered one of the crew members. No one answered. They stepped outside wearing environment suits. Even though scans showed the air was breathable, they walked through the streets scanning for life. No heat signatures, no movement, no animals, not even birds. "This isn't abandoned," said Zarvan. "This is preserved." They entered a building that seemed like a museum. Inside, they found a device glowing faintly. It was the only thing with power. A small cube with a human symbol on it. The symbol said, "Earth Broadcast Archive." Lyra touched it gently. The cube lit up and projected a hologram. A human appeared, middle-aged, serious face, wearing dark uniform. The man spoke clearly. To anyone hearing this, "Turn back." The crew froze. "Earth is silent by choice. If you are seeing this, you have ignored our warning." The image flickered, then continued. "We watched the stars. We saw what was coming, and we knew we had to disappear. We are not gone, we are not dead, but we are no longer part of your galaxy. Leave now." or face what we've become. The message ended. The cube shut down. Silence returned. Zarvin looked around. The building felt colder now. "Captain," Lyra whispered, her voice shaky. "I think we made a mistake." Just then, the ship's alarm sounded through their comms. "Incoming transmission," the ship's AI said. "Origin unknown. Message, you were warned. Now it's too late." And then, the sky above them turned red. The first landing, the sky was red. Not from sunlight or storm clouds. This was something else. Something unnatural. Above the city, a faint shimmer rippled through the air, like a heat wave, but silent and cold. The crew of the Valoran stood frozen outside the museum, staring upward. Even their suits, built to handle extreme conditions, began to hum with static. "What is that?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling. No one answered. Captain Zarvin looked toward the ship parked just a few hundred meters away. Its outer lights flickered rapidly, white, then blue, then red. A low humming sound began to echo across the city streets, growing louder by the second. "Everyone back to the ship," Zarvin ordered calmly, though his heart raced. They moved quickly, but not fast enough. The humming stopped. Silence. Then, a single tone, high-pitched, sharp, and not natural. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The ground beneath them vibrated slightly. Suddenly, the city came to life. Not with people, but with machines. Drones, small, floating spheres, rose from the rooftops. They were silent at first, scanning, observing. Then they turned, one by one, toward the alien crew. "Defense systems," whispered Lyra. "Automated." "This city is not dead," said Zarvin. "It's awake, and it's watching." They reached the ship just in time. As the ramp closed, one of the drones fired a warning beam, just inches from the door. No explosion. No damage. Just a message. "You are not welcome." Inside the ship, chaos. Systems were glitching. Navigation frozen. Internal lights dimming and returning. The AI stuttered. "Connection lost. Primary system. Interrupted. Local override detected." "What does that mean?" Zarvin barked. "We're not in control anymore," said the engineer. "Something is inside our systems." A moment later, the main screen turned black. Then, text appeared in human language, instantly translated. "You were told to leave. This planet is no longer yours to study. This was your first and final warning. Play that message again," Zarvin ordered. But the screen changed before they could. A new image appeared. It showed the Earth from space, but in this image, there were structures floating above it. Massive ones, like space stations or weapons. They weren't there now, but the message was clear. Earth once had power beyond imagination, and maybe still does. Then, the screen blinked again. This time, it played a video, footage of humans. Hundreds of them, standing in front of a massive ship, futuristic armor, emotionless faces. Behind them, cities lifted into the sky, entire cities rising like ships. "They left," said Lyra. "They left the planet, they took their cities and disappeared into space." "No," Zarvin said quietly. "They didn't just leave. They planned this. They wanted the galaxy to think they were gone." The message ended with one chilling sentence. "If you are watching this, and then we are already returning." Before anyone could react, a sudden alarm blared. One of the crew had gone missing. "Where's Tech Officer Ral?" someone shouted. They scanned the ship, no trace. Last seen inside the museum near the glowing cube. Zarvin didn't waste time. "Gear up, we're going back." They exited the ship again, this time armed. The city was silent once more. The drones had vanished. Inside the museum, the cube still sat in the same place, humming softly. No sign of Rawl. But something else was there. A door. A door. They were sure wasn't there before. Black metal, glowing symbols. And it was open. They stepped inside. The hallway was dark, cold, and narrow. As they moved deeper, the walls pulsed with faint light. It looked like a hidden lab, ancient yet advanced. Human writing covered the walls, notes, warnings, calculations. They reached a room. At the center was a large glass chamber filled with white mist. Inside it, a figure, not alien. Human, eyes closed, suspended in stasis, alive. The crew stood still. "Is this one of them?" whispered Lyra. "No," said Zarvin. "This is a message." Just then the figure opened its eyes. They glowed bright white. Everything around the crew went dark, and in the darkness, a voice spoke. Not from a speaker, but directly into their minds. "You came searching for life, but now, life has found you. You woke what should have stayed asleep. And now, you will understand our silence." The lights returned. The glass chamber was empty. The figure was gone. But on the wall, glowing now in bright red, were 4 words. "This is only beginning." Zarvin stepped back. "We need to leave," he said. But as they rushed outside, they saw it. Something massive rising from beneath the city. Not a building, a machine. No, a weapon. And from deep in the earth, a signal pulsed outward. Stronger than anything they had ever seen. The rest of the galaxy would hear it. But it wouldn't be a cry for help. It would be a warning. Humanity's last words. The ship was no longer theirs. The Velaran sat in silence, lights flickering like a dying star. Its systems refused to respond, as if the ship itself had fallen under a greater will, one that belonged to the planet below. "Captain," Zarvin stood in the control chamber, staring at the main screen. No stars, no maps, only a message. Access denied. Earth protocol active. Outside, the city was quiet again. The massive machine that rose from beneath the streets had vanished, sunk back into the ground like a ghost. The glowing red symbols on the museum wall were gone too. But something had changed. They were no longer just visitors. They were prisoners. "The city is breathing," said Lyra, her voice barely a whisper. "I feel it, like it's alive, watching us." She was right. The buildings, once still and lifeless, now hummed faintly. Streetlights blinked in perfect rhythm. Not randomly, but like a heartbeat. Artificial, calculated, Zarvin called for a meeting. "We're not dealing with an abandoned world," he said to the crew. "This is not a dead planet. This is a machine, a living machine, and it's been waiting." "Waiting for us?" someone asked. Zarvin shook his head. "No, waiting for the right time." They reviewed the footage from the underground chamber, the glowing human figure, the voice in their heads, the warning etched in red. "This is only beginning." That's when the AI, long silent, suddenly activated. Not with their own programming, but something else. Something new. A deep voice spoke through the speakers. It was human. "If you are hearing this, you've triggered the final broadcast. You have reached the boundary of our silence. Now you will hear humanity's last words." The lights dimmed. Every screen turned black. And then a video began to play. It showed Earth, centuries ago. Cities full of people. Laughter, war, invention, progress. Then, silence. One by one, human cities shut down. People disappeared. Energy readings dropped to 0, but not because they died. Because they chose to disappear. The voice continued. "We watched the stars. We saw what was coming. Threats too great for peace. Empires too blind to see their own end. So we did what no one expected. We left." The video showed massive ships, millions of people boarding. They rose into the sky, disappearing into wormholes, into the void. Earth became our shadow. A warning. A shield. A trap for the curious. Then the screen showed something new. A galactic map. Hundreds of red dots spread across the galaxy. Each marked a human outpost, each hidden. We didn't go extinct, we evolved. In silence, in the dark, where no one could reach us, the video ended. Zarvin leaned forward. They were never gone. They just became something else. Before they could react, a signal burst through the ship. Not a message, but a command. The Valoran's engines fired on their own. Systems realigned. The ship began lifting. "Who's piloting this?" shouted the engineer. "No one," Zarvan said. They weren't returning to orbit. They were being taken somewhere. The ship moved low above the surface, flying over empty cities, across oceans, over mountains. Finally, it stopped above a desert. There, in the center of the sand, was a structure unlike anything they had ever seen. A monolith, dark, ancient, hundreds of meters tall. Around it, symbols glowed in the sand, circles, lines, human writing. The ship descended. It landed, and the door opened on its own. Zarvan and his team stepped out slowly. The air was heavy, quiet. The sky above had turned gray as they approached. The monolith, a doorway, opened, not by touch but by presence. It knew they were there. Inside was a chamber, circular and endless. At the center, another figure. But this one wasn't in stasis. It was awake, a human, tall, calm, eyes glowing white-blue. Not flesh, something more. Something evolved. He turned to them and spoke. "You came searching for us. Now you will learn what we became." Zarvan stepped forward. "Are you the last human?" The man shook his head. "I am the first of the next." He walked toward them, slow but sure. "We left Earth to escape the cycle of war. We mastered silence. We became one with time, with machine, with thought itself. Earth is not our home. It is our test." "Test?" Lyra asked. The human looked at her. "For those who dare disturb our silence." Behind him, the walls of the chamber shifted. They showed visions. Entire planets falling. Great alien fleets destroyed in seconds. Machines bending space. Humans walking through light. And then, a final vision, the Galactic Council, burning. "Why show us this?" Zarvan asked. "Because you still have a choice," the man said. "Leave now. Forget what you saw, or stay, and carry the warning back." "And if we warn the galaxy?" Lyra asked. "Then they will finally know why we were silent." The chamber dimmed. The human vanished. They were alone again. But the message was clear. Humanity hadn't disappeared. It had simply outgrown the galaxy. Shadows of humanity, the crew of the Valoran, didn't speak for a long time. They sat inside their ship, engines powered, doors sealed, minds disturbed. They had just met a human, something more than human. A being of light, thought, and time. It had shown them visions, memories, warnings. Outside, the desert was still. No wind, no sound. The stars above, cold and distant. But the silence now felt different. Heavier, as if something old and powerful was watching them. Captain Zarvan stood alone in the ship's viewing deck. His eyes stared into the sand, but his thoughts were far away. "They're not hiding," he whispered to himself. "They're waiting." Behind him, Lyra entered. Her hand shook slightly as she held a report. "Captain, the ship's data logs have changed." He turned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, they've been rewritten. Every file, every scan, every report we took on Earth, it's gone. Replaced with this." She handed him a tablet. Only one message remained. "You were warned. Now you remember only what we allow." Zarvan's jaw tightened. They're not just ahead in weapons. They control information, thought, maybe even memory. But something else troubled him more. What else had they changed, without anyone noticing? Suddenly, a voice called from the ship's AI room. "Captain, we have movement underground." They rushed to the control center. On the screen, radar showed a signal, a deep energy pulse coming from beneath the desert floor. "It's massive," the engineer said. "It's not a building. It's something buried. A hatch opened in the sand, silent and slow. Dust swirled upward as a structure began to rise. Black metal. Ancient human design, but nothing from any known age. Another trap? One officer asked. Or an invitation, Zarvin said. They stepped outside again, this time cautiously. The structure stood 30 meters tall, shaped like a tower, but smooth. No doors, no windows, no markings, except for one word etched near the base. Echo. Lyra touched it. The tower responded. A panel opened, and a soft pulse of light emerged. They entered. Inside, the tower was larger than it looked. Stairs led downward, deep, beneath the earth. The air grew colder, heavier. With every step, the crew felt more like trespassers walking into a forgotten tomb. After 15 minutes of silence, they reached a chamber, and there, they saw them. Rows of figures, not statues, not machines. Humans, standing upright, eyes closed, breathing slowly. Hundreds of them suspended in a deep blue mist. Men, women, children, all wearing dark uniforms. No signs of age, no signs of time. They're alive, Lyra whispered. This isn't a grave, it's a vault. A voice echoed from the walls. Calm, emotionless, synthetic. Echo chamber protocol active. Unit readiness, 92%. Awaken, if galaxy threat level reaches code black. What's code black? The engineer asked. Zarvin already knew. Us, he said. We are code black, the voice continued. You have entered a restricted human war facility. You are now a variable. You will be assessed. Lights shut off. Red beams scanned their bodies, their thoughts, their history. Then, one of the sleeping humans opened his eyes. The crew froze. The man stepped forward, calm, controlled. He looked at Zarvin. Then he spoke. You were not expected yet, but the galaxy never learns. Who are you? Zarvin asked. Echo Protocol Commander. Designation. Merrick. I was born during Earth's last war, and reborn in silence. He walked around them, slowly. We created this place for one reason, not to survive, but to return. Zarvin tried to speak, but Merrick raised a hand. The galaxy feared our silence. It should have feared our patience. Your kind thinks power comes from ships, from empires, from noise. But true power lives in shadows. It waits. It listens. And when it moves, it ends wars in seconds. Behind Merrick, more humans began to wake, all silent, all calm. Each one opened their eyes, and all of them glowed white. Suddenly, a warning from the Velaran's orbiting command ship crackled through. Captain Zarvin, hostile signals approaching. Unknown origin. They're fast. Too fast. Zarvin tapped. Is comm, how many? The reply was short. Dozens. No, hundreds. They came from nothing, like they were hidden between atoms. The sky above turned dark, not from clouds, but from shadows. Human ships, sleek, silent, with no engines visible. Black metal that absorbed light. They didn't fly. They slid through space, breaking every known law of physics. One message was broadcast across every channel in every language. This is not your galaxy anymore. Inside the chamber, Merrick looked at Zarvin one last time. Return to your council. Tell them what you saw. Not for peace, but for preparation. Preparation for what? Zarvin asked. Merrick's eyes narrowed. For judgment. The lights went out. The crew awoke back on their ship. No memory of how they got there. No signal. Just one new file on their system. One that couldn't be deleted. It contained only a single phrase, written in the human language. We are the silence between stars. Earth awakened, space trembled. No explosion, no fire. But every sensor in orbit around Earth lit up in panic. Systems across the Velaran, and even those still linked to the galactic relay satellites, began showing one clear reading. Earth was no longer sleeping. Deep beneath its crust, something ancient had begun to move. Captain Zarvin stood in silence at the front of the command deck. Around him, Alarms flashed, screens shifted, crew members shouted, but his eyes were fixed on the message still glowing on the ship's main console. We are the silence between stars. He had seen enough. Too much. This was no longer an exploration. It was a mistake. Prepare for immediate departure, he ordered. We can't, Lyra responded quickly. All systems are frozen. It's not just us. Command ship in orbit reports full shutdown. Even their escape pods aren't launching. Zarvin clenched his jaw. Then we're not being watched anymore. We're being held. Just then, the ship's lights dimmed, not from damage, not from failure, but by choice. A slow pulse began moving through the walls, not mechanical, but biological. The ship's hull itself began to breathe as if something had infected it, something that now understood its design better than its creators. The ship AI came online again, but this time, it did not sound like a machine. It spoke in a human voice. You should not have stayed. Before they could respond, the ship's screen changed. It showed Earth from above, but not as they had seen it before. This was live footage, and something impossible was happening. One of the old, silent cities, once thought empty, was rising. Buildings folding upward, forming strange geometric shapes. Roads twisted like muscle, lifting into the sky, and then the entire city lifted off the ground, not like a spaceship, but like a creature waking up from a long, deep sleep. That's not a city, Lyra whispered. It's a construct. Maybe a war form. Across the planet, the same thing began happening. 5, 10, 20 cities, each transforming, rising, spreading wings of black steel and glowing crystal. They moved with purpose. They weren't flying. They were assembling. Zarvin stared at the feed. They built their cities as warships, he said, and they left them behind like landmines. What are they preparing for? A crew member asked as if to answer. The ship's screen zoomed out. In orbit above the moon, something was blinking, a hidden gate, a rift between space and something else. And from that rift, they began to return. Massive ships, human in design, but far beyond anything in the galaxy. Black as void, silent as death, moving without propulsion, some the size of moons, others shaped like blades, each marked with the same symbol, 2 stars, and a single eye between them. The galaxy once laughed at Earth's silence. Now it was listening, and it was afraid. Signal incoming, the AI said. Priority code, unknown encryption, overriding standard protocol. The message played. A human voice. Calm, emotionless. To the observers beyond the stars, we have returned. We did not leave in fear. We left to prepare. You built empires while we built the future. You chased war while we studied time. You feared us when we were weak. Now, you will understand why we disappeared. Zarvin felt his body grow cold. You called us primitive. Now you call us prophecy. Earth awakens. Not for peace, not for revenge, but to correct what the galaxy has become. Just then the Velaran shook violently. Outside the windows, they saw one of the massive human constructs floating just above the ground opening. A massive beam of blue light shot into the sky, connecting with the returning ships above. Energy surged through it, tearing through the clouds, bending them. Air Captain, Lyra shouted. They're powering something. What is it? I don't know, but if that pulse keeps growing, it's going to... The beam exploded into a ripple across space, and something changed. A nearby moon, lifeless and orbiting peacefully, moved. Not shifted, turned, revealing a hidden mechanism across its surface. It had never been a moon. It had been a watcher hidden by Earth, waiting, silent. From within it, a fleet emerged. Small at first. Hundreds of ships, then thousands, all unmanned, AI-controlled, perfect formation. Those aren't weapons. Zarvin realized. They're messengers. The ships left Earth orbit and vanished into hyperspace. Their direction, every major system in the galaxy. The message had been sent. Earth was awake. And it had a mission. Hours later, in the central chamber of the Galactic Council, panic spread like wildfire. Live feeds showed the unfolding events on Earth. Leaders argued. Military chiefs screamed for defense. How many ships? One asked. We don't know, a tech officer replied. They don't appear on scanners until they're already within firing range. Have they attacked? No, not yet. Then what do they want? No one answered. Then the council screen blinked. A man appeared, not from any known race. A human, in armor that shimmered like stars, face hidden by a silver visor. He spoke slowly. You forgot us. You dismissed us. You feared our silence, but not enough. You will not fear our voice, not until it breaks you. This is not a war. This is a correction. The screen went black, and Earth continued to rise. The truth of Earth, the galaxy had only seen a glimpse, a rising city, a pulse of light, silent ships gliding through space, and one terrifying message. This is not war. This is correction. But the galaxy still didn't understand. They thought it was about weapons, about revenge, about fear. It wasn't. It was about truth. And truth was something far more dangerous. Aboard the Valoran, Captain Zarvan and his crew stood in silence. Their ship had been released from lockdown, not by force but by permission. The message was clear. You may leave. You've seen enough. But they hadn't. Zarvan knew it. Something in his mind told him there was more. Something they had missed. Something they were meant to find. We need to stay, he said quietly. What? Lyra turned, shocked. After everything? After what we've seen? Exactly, he replied. They showed us power, but power is always just the surface. Now, they want us to ask why. No one disagreed. The ship's scans picked up a new structure, one that hadn't been there before. It was rising from the Atlantic Ocean, massive, circular, pulsing with energy. At its center was a spire, so tall it pierced the clouds. The crew flew toward it. They landed on a floating platform. No guards, no weapons, no resistance. A single door stood waiting. Zarvan stepped through. Inside there was no metal, no screens, no machines, only light, and then a voice. You came to study us. Now we will show you what you never asked. Around them, the light shifted. It became images, moving, breathing history. Not from books, from memory. They saw Earth, not as a planet, but as a mind, a living archive, a deep ancient intelligence formed by millions of years of war, peace, loss, and discovery. They saw the turning point, the moment Earth chose silence. It began with the arrival of something ancient, not from the galaxy, from outside it, an entity with no shape, no voice, just hunger. It moved through the stars like a virus, turning suns dark, swallowing civilizations in silence. Humanity found it first, not because they were advanced, but because they were watching. They didn't run. They didn't fight. They listened. They learned. And they realized the truth. The galaxy wasn't ready. No one was. If humanity had warned the Council then, war would have followed. Greed, fear, chaos. The entity would have consumed it all. So humans made a choice. They vanished. They erased their presence, shut down their signals, hid their weapons, their minds, their people. They created illusions, dead cities, silent satellites. They went dark, and they prepared. Zarvan stood frozen. They disappeared. To protect us? The voice responded. We disappeared. To protect time. What does that mean? The room shifted again. They saw humanity building ships not just for space, but for time travel. Fleets launched into dark zones where reality itself bent. They studied quantum consciousness, dimensional shadows, and even the physics of extinction. And they found something terrifying. A future. A possible future where the galaxy collapsed, not from war, but from a single, unified mind that had consumed all others. not a species, a force, a pattern that began when curiosity became obsession and power replaced purpose. The entity they saw was not a creature. It was a reflection of what the galaxy would become. So humanity hid and began building a firewall, a wall around space, around thought, around future itself. Earth became that firewall. Lyra fell to her knees. They're not preparing to attack. They're trying to stop us. The voice grew quiet. You called us dangerous, arrogant, unpredictable, and you were right. We are not heroes. We are not gods. We are only awake. And you are still dreaming. Suddenly the platform around them opened. They were standing now above a vast, impossible chamber, deep beneath the ocean. It was filled with machines, alive, humming, reaching through space like roots. Thousands of tubes connected to something. In the center, a being not human, not alien, something in between, a hybrid mind, a living gate. What is it? Sarvin whispered. The voice answered. Our future, our last hope, our greatest risk. If we succeed, it becomes a bridge. If we fail, it becomes the next collapse. Sarvin looked at it and understood. This was what they were guarding. Not weapons, not territory. The edge of reality itself. Back aboard the Valoran, as they lifted into orbit once more, a new transmission reached the entire crew. No voice. No threat, only this. We are not your enemy. But if you force us to choose between peace and survival, we will choose survival. Every time. Sarvin sat quietly in the command chair. We have to tell the galaxy, he said. Not just what we saw, but what's coming. Lyra nodded. They won't believe us. Then let them see what we saw. Above them, Earth was no longer a world. It was a message, and it had just been delivered. Earth strikes back, the warning had been sent. Not through missiles, not through death, but through truth. And truth, once seen, could not be forgotten. Captain, Sarvin's ship, the Valoran, drifted silently above the blue and black sphere that was no longer just a planet. Earth was now awake, and the galaxy, after centuries of arrogance, ignorance, and fear, had finally begun to understand why the silence had lasted so long. But some in the Galactic Council did not believe. Some saw humanity's reappearance as a threat, others as a bluff. But one empire, old and proud, saw an opportunity. They mobilized their fleets not to defend but to conquer. If they feared to speak, they feared to fight. That was the last mistake the galaxy would make. The invasion begins 3 days after Earth's awakening. Over 5,000 ships entered. Solspace. Led by the Vorthan Alliance, a brutal collective of war-born species. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. They sent no warnings, no ambassadors, only one message: submit or burn. The Valoran was still in orbit when the Vorthan ships arrived. Sarvin sent a final transmission to the Council. I begged you to listen. Below, Earth did not react. No defense, no shields, no movement, just silence. And the Vorthans laughed. They moved into attack formation. Battle cruisers prepared to fire. Dreadnoughts began charging solar cannons. And then the sky bent. The retaliation. There was no sound. Only distortion, as if the very fabric of space had been twisted by something too fast to see. And in a single instant, 37 Vorthan capital ships vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone, erased. The rest of the fleet panicked. They changed formations, scattered, fired blindly. And then came the humans. Not in fleets, not in waves, but in shadows. Black ships, shaped like daggers of glass, moving through space with no engines, no trails, no heat. They phased in and out of visibility, as if reality could no longer hold them still. For every Vorthan shot fired, 5 more ships disappeared. For every target locked, the targeting system shut down. One by one, the Vorthan fleet fell into chaos. And then a single voice entered every system. Human.com.final. You were warned. The fall of Vorthan pried across space. Humans didn't fire missiles. They didn't launch drones. They rewrote the battlefield. Vorthan ships began turning on themselves, not from betrayal, but from hijacked code. Entire navigation systems reversed, weapons redirected. AI screamed in confusion as their cores were overridden by something far older, far smarter, and far colder. Earth's silence had been a choice. Now their voice was everywhere. Ships crumbled, crews surrendered, and at the center of it all, floating above the Earth, a human vessel appeared. Not large, not armed, just a single ship glowing with white-blue light. A voice spoke from it, not loud, but clear enough for every soul to feel it in their bones. We disappeared to protect you from what's coming. But if this galaxy insists on returning to war, then let it know one thing. Earth does not conquer. Earth does not invade. Earth corrects what they became as the last Vorthan ship imploded in silence. Captain Zarvan watched from the Velaran in awe. He had seen war. He had seen empire rise and fall. But this was judgment without cruelty, precision without pride. Earth had become something else, not just a species, not even a civilization, a force, a balancing law. Zarvan opened a private channel. To all listening, this is not about fear. This is about understanding. The silence of Earth was never emptiness. It was wisdom. He paused. We feared Earth because it said nothing. Now we understand. Earth said nothing because it had nothing left to prove. The Council's last question, when the Galactic Council finally reconvened, there was no debate. There were no insults, no threats, just a single question spoken quietly. What does humanity want? The answer came not from a fleet, not from a speech, but from a file, delivered silently to every system. Its message was written in a dozen languages, burned into every council archive, every fleet, every command AI. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your riches. We do not want your loyalty. We want only this. Let the galaxy grow in peace. Let it think. Let it question. Let it learn what we learned. But if you reach again with fire, we will return. With silence. The end of fear in the centuries that followed. Humanity rarely appeared. Their ships, when seen, left no trace. Their technology remained locked. Their people, unseen, still evolving, watching from behind stars. But across the galaxy, war slowed. The empires grew quieter. Leaders chose caution over conquest, because now they knew. If silence ever returned, if the stars ever seemed too calm, if the darkness began to breathe again, then it would mean only one thing. Earth was watching. And next time, it wouldn't warn twice.